All right, so I'm just in the process right now of cleaning my bear skull. So right now I'm boiling it, and we've probably been boiling this dude for about 4 hours, I'm thinking. Okay, so I just started out with regular water and Dawn, and we're just letting it simmer now. We haven't done much to it. We've taken a little bit of the meat off, okay? His first and second and possibly third vertebrae are still attached, so it's just a process of deboning this guy. So I pulled the bear skull out of the water. Like I said, it's been boiling for about 4 hours, so it's pretty soft. I trimmed away some of the meat as we went, but generally speaking, the meat just kind of falls off. You got to do some trimming, like this vertebrae right here. Oh, there we go. It popped right out. Okay, so you see right here, the vertebrae finally fell out, and then I'll be digging out this brain. Okay, and all this meat has to go, obviously, but now that it's been boiling in the Dawn, it just falls apart. It's like you've been braising something. Okay, and it's a lot easier than spending a whole bunch of time trimming with it raw, whereas this is, see how this flakes right off. So the amount of work I've probably put into this so far is minimal, probably 15-20 minutes thus far. Lots of boiling. You know, I'm gonna have to get all this out. Ear canals gotta go, right? So the ear canal just kind of pops out like this, just like that, okay? And now we just gotta keep on cleaning. Here's the eye cavity. Just like a deer. It's obviously a different shape and form. Different things react differently, but generally speaking, this is the same as a deer. All right? And look at this. It's almost done. Keep that bone just in case. And here we go. Okay, so there's a little bit of bits and pieces left to do, but I'm not going to bore you with that. So I'm going to take as much of this brain out as possible. This isn't exactly the right tool, but that's okay. Kind of get the gist. So you're going to take all the brain out, and then I'm going to be pressure washing this. Okay, so I'm going to take it to the car wash and just blast it, and it'll get every single thing out of there so that you don't have to worry about flies in your mouth later on or anything like that. Nasal cavity, I want to be taking my time and picking out all the nasal cavity. That's what I'll be doing. Okay, and then spraying it out. Right, that's how you're going to get everything out of the skull. All right, so he's missing a few teeth here, not a big deal. They just fell out in the boiling process. I'm just going to be gluing these anyways. Okay, and then the jaws, we'll keep the jaws and we'll just glue these in place. Okay, spray them out, and I'm going to be bleaching these, and then I'm going to be adding more Dawn soap to the water and making sure that all the grease is out of this dude, okay, because bears are very greasy. All right, so I'm just giving you a quick update on the bear skull. So I finished the boiling and scraping off the majority of the flesh and meat. And now I'm just in the process of scraping off any little pieces of cartilage, okay, that you'll see up here in the ear canals. Every little piece of the brain. I took this to the car wash, okay, when it was just coming out of the water, right? So I had boiling water with Dawn in it, and I was boiling it for quite some time. And I sprayed out most of the nasal cavity, okay? And the brain, most of the brain's coming out right now. There's probably maybe a couple percentages of brain left in there, so I'm just gonna pick out what I can. And it's squeaky clean pretty much right now as it is. I took out all the teeth, okay? There's a little bit more flesh, as you can see over here, I gotta get out. But generally speaking, this is pretty darn clean here. And I'm just picking away at the remainder of it. So you'll notice once you pull this out of the water, there's going to be a little bit of a membrane and fatty tissue all over the skull. And so a nice flexible steel brush is probably the best bet for that. Another piece of equipment that you might want is a longer needle nose pliers. Knife just for taking away majority of the flesh. A little pick here. You'll notice that there's a little bit of meat right over here. So you just kind of get in there, okay, and pick as much of this meat out as possible, right? Because we don't want any bugs in there, flies, laying eggs, or anything like that. We don't want this to start to smell later on, right? And you'll notice the bottom jaw came apart. That was due to probably just boiling it too long, but that's not a big deal, right? So these fit in here really, really nicely, okay? And what I'm going to be doing to that is gluing them back together again so it's solid, okay? After I pick away at more of the cleaning, just the little odds and ends, I'm going to be bleaching this guy. So I'll be using hydrogen peroxide solution. We'll take you through that process once I get the solution I need. All right, so I boiled the teeth. You don't want to lose these teeth. I'm sure you can find teeth online if you did. So these are most of the incisor teeth, okay? This is mostly the top incisors that go over here. I got some soap and water and brought it to a boil. And you'll notice that there's a kind of a film on the tooth, right? So you're going to be wanting to scrape that off, rub it off, do whatever you have to do to get that film off so it's a nice clean tooth. And just keep on doing it to all the teeth that you do have. Usually just grab these teeth, just gently squeeze it into pliers, and just scrape off all that flesh. Keep on going. All right, that side looks good. And keep on going on this. And I'll be bleaching these with this skull when it's time. So I'm going to try the boiling method. I'm going to try to boil it in the peroxide instead of just applying the peroxide cold and letting it sit. I'm going to try boiling it up and see how that works. And a lot cleaner. All right, so I'm about to boil my skull with peroxide here. So I got equal parts water and this Salon Care 40. All right, so equal parts Salon Care 40 and the bear skull. So I'm going to turn on the heat and let it boil for about a half an hour. All right, so I finished boiling the skull. I had to add a little bit more water than anticipated, so it wasn't exactly 50-50. It was more like, say, 33% peroxide, okay, and the rest water. And it didn't get quite as white as I would have liked, but everything's looking pretty good. The teeth look fantastic. All right, so now I'm just going to grab this cream that I do have. Before I just used the clear, Salon Care Clear. So now I have Salon Care 40, right? So this is a cream. So we're just going to lather this up right now, okay? Pour this stuff all over, inside every single cavity. And you'll notice this guy doesn't have any teeth right now. I took the teeth out, cleaned them out real good, put them in a solution of peroxide. And right now I'm just going to lather this guy up real good and let him sit for a day or two here. I was hoping not to have to do this. I was hoping that the boiling could have worked, but next time I'm going to have to do a higher concentration, right, of the Salon Care and get every single little crevice. But overall, I'm pretty happy with this. A lot of the grease seems like it dissipated. It's not hanging around, but we'll find out here. Proof is finally in the pudding, right? I wanted to use this stuff for my deer skulls last time. So I would drape paper towel over the skull, and then I would pour the clear stuff over top of it, right? And you'd have to do that every 6 hours. You go to work, you'd baste it basically with a turkey baster, and then you come home, baste it again all through the night, whereas this cream seems to work really, really well. It's more of a thicker coating, more of a thicker consistency. So I'm just going to put this guy on and it'll work good. This is a high concentration of peroxide, so this is the 40. So it should do a pretty good job. So I had the pleasure of inhaling a whole bunch of peroxide tonight, and now I'm on a peroxide high. It's a pretty good buzz. I highly suggest it for everybody. So I got the skull done now. I want to pour it down the nose cavity here, the nasal cavity. And I'm going to be doing the jaws, but I'm not going to bore you with all that. And then I'll get back to you a little bit here and see how this progresses. All right. Alright, so I'm just in the process of taking some teeth out. In the boiling process and the bleaching process, the teeth just become loose. Okay, and these are the teeth that need to be glued back in. Alright, so I'm just going to take this tacky glue. You can use Elmer's wood glue, crazy glue, 2-part epoxy, whatever you want. But for me, this is good enough. So I'm just going to take some of this glue, throw it in the cavity there. And some will pour out, whatever. You just wipe it up. And all the way down. I felt that one a little bit too full. Alright, so I'll take this guy, pop it into there. Is this the wrong way? Just kind of wedge it in there. It's coming out, I hope. Just give it a push. And this guy is the last but not least. Nope, not that way. And this way. It's starting to pour out the end there, that's not a big deal. Let's give it a little wipe with your hand here. Also on the inside. And good to go. Now this will take about 24 hours to fully harden. And any loose teeth that I did have, I don't know if there's any loose teeth here. This little guy right here, it's a little bit loose. So I'll take some crazy glue, because crazy glue is pretty liquidy. Okay, and I'll just kind of pour it down the side of the tooth here. Okay, and it'll kind of drain all the way to the bottom to the sides. And I'll just press it down and hold it for a minute, and then it'll be totally solid. Okay, I did that to some of these teeth. All these teeth over here. Yeah, they're starting to harden up real good. So yeah, they weren't fully coming out, but I didn't want to pry them out. And what I did is I just lifted them up, probably maybe, I don't know, 1/8 of an inch or something like that. And they just kind of raised up as I pulled them. And then I just poured some crazy glue down the sides, all the way along here. Same thing to this side, okay? All the way down. And all these teeth are right in there. And I just kind of pressed them with my thumbs to cover them all and held them for a minute, and it worked out pretty good. And all these teeth, I just wood glued them, or with this tacky glue. This seems to do the trick. I didn't have any wood glue handy right now. I used it all, but yeah, no, this seems to work out pretty good. And same thing with the jaws, because as you remember before, these jaws were separated, okay? And I glued on the inside, okay, and pieced together. And then I clamped them overnight, and it turned out good. All these teeth I glued in there as well, and it's working out pretty good so far. All right, to the next step. All right, just a quick recap in where I'm at. Okay, so all the teeth are finally glued in. Now you'll notice these little cavities right here. There's one right here. Okay, and there's little cavities by the canines here. Okay, now I have 5 extra little teeth left over, and they don't seem to fit properly into the spots that I do have available, and right here and right here. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 5 teeth left over. For some reason, the teeth do not want to fit properly and it looks kind of wonky. So I'm just going to skip it until maybe a later stage. Then I'll put those teeth back in. But for now, it looks pretty good for now. Okay, right now I'm in the process of gluing the bottom jaw to the skull. Okay, now I could just leave it closed, which my wife prefers. It doesn't look so vicious as, say, this. I don't understand. I think this looks way better. So I'm going to do it. She says I'll have to leave it in the garage if it's open, but so be it. So I'm not going to like do a crazy wide open one. I'm just going to do a slightly open. Okay, so maybe we meet in the middle. The process and how I'm going to be doing this is gluing it. Now, I read some threads online that some people actually take this portion, okay, and drill a hole through it to match in here, and it comes out the side here, and it's just like a nut and a bolt, and that's how they do it. And then you screw it in there and glue it and do whatever else with that. That sounds great, and I'm tempted to do it, but I just don't want to ruin this area at all. Just being a pussy, I guess. So I'm just going to try gluing it. Now if the gluing doesn't work, well then I'll be going to that route so it stays in place. But for now, I'm just going to glue it. So I'll be using the glue that I do have, and I'll be gluing this area right here. Okay. Now I scraped it down quite a bit just so there's no fibers or dust, and same thing with this area. So it's not very smooth, it's kind of coarse. I don't know if this is coming out on camera, but check it out. So I'm going to apply glue on both sides here, glue on both sides here, and piece it together, okay? And I need something to push against each other, right? And put something between the teeth. So I'll probably be pushing against my workbench, right? So where my left hand is, and then I'll probably be putting something where my right hand is here, and holding them together that way, and putting something between the teeth. All right, so I'm just going to be applying some glue here. Hopefully you're able to see this. Wait till this glue comes down. I'm going to be applying a fairly liberal amount of glue here, just to make sure everything holds tight. And who knows, this may not even work, but we'll give it a shot. If not, I may have to do the bolt method, which makes sense. But we'll try this first. This is going to go on a plaque, so I'm going to make a plaque. And so hopefully over time it holds. That's just the thing though, right? Whereas a bolt will be more of a long-lasting fix in the first place. So I'm going to just rub this in here quite liberally, just to get it in all the cracks and crevices. It's not a totally smooth surface, which is kind of nice, it's quite porous. And then what I'm going to be doing after it's all set, any gaps, I want to be dropping some crazy glue in. And that should hold it. Oh, got some glue spilling over here. Just kind of rub it all over here. Looks like I got some glue dripping on the side here. Not a big deal. That's a good thing though, right? Because dealing with this type of glue, it's quite forgiving, right? Say if you were dealing with teeth, for instance, these teeth I'd be able to remove, right? Because this is like a water base. So water will be able to actually remove all of this. Okay, so it's in there. Now I'm just going to be taking this little piece of babinga that I had kicking around, and I'm just going to hold it. All right, so far I have the skull in position to where I want it, and I got the joints all glued up. You'll be able to see a little, maybe it won't, see a little bead of glue right at the bottom, right where my thumb is. Now I'm at this point where I want to make sure that everything is aligned. Okay, I want to make sure that these canines are even. I don't want this crooked or tilted or slanted in any way, shape, or form, right? So I don't want this sliding around or not being consistent. Okay, so as I can see right now, this looks pretty good. And I'm pretty happy with the result. So far, so good. So now we'll just wait for this to set for 24 hours to see whether or not it holds up and go from there. All right. Now, if I did anything different, I would make sure that I have a higher concentration for the boiling method of peroxide and water, because I found that it's a little bit of an aggressive method that I used for the length of time that I was boiling it. So I like to try it again to be able to maybe only have to boil it for maybe half an hour, okay? So it was probably in there boiling for about an hour and a half. So it was a little longer than I would have liked. It did get everything white, more or less, but not as white as I wanted it. So then I had to go through the cream method, or just go all the way cream method, right? But I was worried about the grease factor, right? I didn't want to have any grease issues, certain areas not whitening as I would have liked. But overall, for my first bear skull, this is pretty good. All right, so as you can see, the skull is at the back of my workbench. So I wanted to make sure that the skull is pressed up against the back of the workbench right here, okay? And then it's anchored with just a bottle of acetone I have here, okay? Because you'll see right over here, okay, there's a little bead of glue right over there. You'll see that. You want to make sure that that bead of glue, when you press these two pieces together, doesn't become larger, right? That basically means that it's as tight as it can get, okay? And you can see on the other side as well, okay, the same thing, okay? So I just don't want to have this moving overnight. If it was just sitting on the table like this, it could move overnight and all of a sudden it'd be cockeyed, all right? Then I have to take everything apart, risk breaking everything, clean everything off, reapply the glue. It would just be a mess. So this is what I did. I'm sure there's better methods, but this is what made sense to me right now, okay? So here's the skull, and the next step is going to be glazing it. All right, so it's the next day. The glue has set for 24 hours now, and so far so good. It has really held on well, okay? But we'll see what happens in the test of time, right? So that's the whole thing. We don't know until it actually falls off the wall, eh? And we'd never want that to happen. So I'm going to be taking a couple steps here just to ensure that this won't happen, or less likely to happen. So you'll see right over here, okay? I'm just going to add a little bit of crazy glue, okay? So I'm just going to add a small little bead here, and this dries clear. It's no big deal if anybody sees it. And then we're just going to do a fine little bead. Is this coming out on video? Okay, there we go. Just along the sides here. You know, it's probably not even necessary, but let's just do it anyways. And right over here as well. Just all the way around. Same thing with this side over here. And we got the neighbor kids barking. Anyways. And just down the side, you'll see right over here. Okay, all the way along there. So whatever actually drains, whatever crevices that are in there and it drains into, it'll just solidify it a little bit more. Okay? And along this side over here, I'm moving this around and I'm not even sure if it's in frame. Great, eh? And then along here and over here. Just those final little extra steps that really make the difference. You know, because I would rather not have to drill a hole into this bone. And I'm sure there's nothing wrong with that. I'm sure it would work great. I'm just too much of a chicken to actually do it. So I just envision me drilling a hole in my drill press, or just even the hand drill, and all of a sudden everything just starts crumbling. So I think we're on the home stretch here. Now we just got to glaze it up. All right, so I'm just in the process right now of doing a little bit of a thin glaze coat on this skull. Right now I have the Aleen's, and I just cut it 50-50 water and tacky glue, and I'm going to be adding this to the bear skull. So I already mixed it, and now I'm just going to go for it. I haven't put any glaze coats on my previous skulls, so it'll be interesting to see what this does. And just put a nice coating all over it. Hopefully it doesn't yellow over time, but I guess we'll find out. It's not really what I'm looking for, that's for sure. And if there's any little specks, like right there, get them out. Alright, so I finished all the top of the skull. I'm just going to wait till the top dries, and then I'll carry on to the bottom part of the skull. But right now, I was looking around for places that are pooling, right? So all the glue would kind of roll down and maybe settle right over here. So you'll want to make sure that you take your brush and get whatever glue has pooled, okay? Same thing with over here. And at these ridges, you can kind of see it's settling right along here, right? So you'll want to watch pooling there as well, okay? So I'm going to be doing the bottom tomorrow. All right, so it's the next day. I glued the bottom jaw. All right, so I have the final clear coat on, same as the top, okay? All the way on the inside, the bottom, right over here in all the joints. So this thing is solid. I have no worries that this bottom jaw connected to the skull won't hold. I think it'll hold perfectly fine. All right, so this is the final product. Now, as you can see right over here, this is the only thing I'm dissatisfied with, is this little spot right here, okay? The rest of the skull is pretty darn good. It's just this little spot right here. Must have got a little bit fatty. Brushing off the skull with a nice flexible wire brush, I'm thinking that maybe some of this started to come out, right? But who knows? It is what it is. It's unfortunate, but it's not going to be the end of the world. You know, when the bright lights aren't on it and it's going to be hanging on the wall, it's still going to look fantastic. What are some things that I would do differently is boil it with a higher concentration of peroxide for sure, and water. So 50-50 at least. Hopefully I could get it down to say maybe 30 minutes or something like that, maybe even 15, but that's what I would do next time. Other than that, I definitely saved a lot of money in this process. Yeah, it's not as good as, say, a taxidermist or somebody that does skulls, but this is my first bear. If this was like a trophy of some sort, like a record breaker, yeah, maybe I would have considered taking it to somebody else. Probably not, though. I tend to like to do things myself and learn in the process. But overall, I'm pretty happy. I still got to build a plaque, so I'll take you through that process as well. I just got to figure out a design and the type of wood. So overall, this is good. I definitely like this. There's definitely a lot of better bear skulls out there, I'm sure, but for my first time, this is definitely a positive. This is way different than a deer, just in the respect to the fat content and this happening. So I'll be paying closer attention there. Now, if you guys have any helpful hints or tips, chime up, leave a comment. But this is how I did it this time. Next time I do it, it'll be differently. I still got to do my bear rug. The bear is still fantastic, smells great. I put it down in the basement. The humidity level is low, so it's looking good. So I just got to get some felt and do up the bear. It's probably going to be a wintertime project, perhaps. All right. Thanks a lot for watching the video, and I'll talk to you later.